Episode 7, Chapter 6, Seasons Don't Fear the Reaper. Chapter 6, Seasons Don't Fear the Reaper.
Lich! Are you there?
The voice of Tiamat hissed as the cloud of blackness appeared, unnecessary in the absolute darkness so far beneath the earth but created regardless for the formality.
I've come to pay you a visit. How touching!
The fiend of earth growled sardonically from his seat of rock, where he slumped in a dark gloom.
It's only been 2 decades since you actually came to see me down here, or is it 3? Still not as long as Carrie and Kraken, though, I'll admit. Well, perhaps that will change soon. I'm afraid my vessel will not be able to perform his function anymore. Oh.
One of Tiamat's many eyebrows lifted curiously.
And why would that be? Did he displease you? You could say that, yes. I suppose he did.
Lich chuckled shortly.
But not in the way you are imagining. He displeased me by failing. By dying. Permanently, this time. 3 guesses who it was who killed him. The Light Warriors.
Tiamat recoiled.
They're here, then? And challenging you directly. They're trying to, at least. They thought that puppet was actually me, and are quite proud of themselves for killing a fiend already.
Lich laughed again.
It would be rather amusing, really. If it weren't for the fact that I remain unable to correct their idiocy. I remain here, trapped. A prisoner in the heart of my own power.
Seething, he touched off a tremor that would knock the edge off a cliff face in the general direction of the 4 mortals he loathed so much, hoping it would claim them.
I am the fiend of earth, and I am powerless to correct this affront against me. It is nearly unbearable.
Tiamat agreed.
I apologize once again for that mistake. We were so sure of victory, we never imagined your counterpart would do such a thing as this. However,
the fiend of air's eyes narrowed.
There is still the matter of that prophecy. If they wish to truly kill you, those 4 will have to get to you. And as long as that plate is in place, they cannot. You think they will find a way to shatter it?
Lich's own eyes glowed at that thought.
If they can. If they do, I will show them the true might of a fiend. I might even kill them quickly, out of gratitude for freeing me. Well, relatively quickly, anyways. Maybe. It may not be as easy as that.
Tiamat cautioned.
That prophecy worries me. And I know it does you as well. Of course. I'm not so much of a fool as Kraken or Carrie.
Lich agreed.
But I don't want any of you here when it happens. We're still elementals, and the presence of one of you would offset my own powers. Weaken me. I want to unleash everything I am on those wretched mortals. Just in case. Fair enough. And well thought out, as well.
The fiend of air agreed.
When you fight them, I'll stay out of it. However, there are other ways we can prepare for the worst. Ever since the Chaos Knight died, I have been working on thinking of a backup plan. Just in case. It will take all 4 of us, but the other 2 will not budge right at first if I know them. You, though, are more intelligent. Will you help me with it now, before you confront the Light Warriors? A backup plan, you say? Very interesting.
Lich hissed.
Tell me more about this, old friend. Much more. No one passes this road.
The Titan greeted the 4 Light Warriors dully with the exact same words as before.
Really? You sure about that?
Drake winked slyly as he produced the ruby that had been found on the vampire's remains.
Not even if we give you this.
The Titan's eyes gleamed, back in the sunken holes of his face.
Ruby. You give. Then. You pass.
He held out his hand, and the thief deposited the jewel into it. Shoving the ruby into his maw, the Titan retreated until he could step aside, then did so. As the light warriors edged through the narrow passage, they heard the crunching as the mighty monolith chewed the ruby up with ease.
Tasty. Rubies are my favorite. Funny. Aftertaste like blood. But still good.
He paused in thought.
If you give Ruby. Sarda waiting for you. We figured as much.
Luke agreed.
We're on our way to see him right now, don't worry. Okay.
The Titan walked back into his tunnel once they were clear.
When you come back, you pass again for free. Thanks, big guy. We appreciate it.
Drake waved as they walked out of the other side of the tunnel.
Right then, now we just need to get to Sarda and ask him what's going on. Tally-ho. It's too early for your jabbering.
Vlad muttered, pulling his hat down further over his eyes.
I didn't sleep well last night. Granted, I don't sleep well any night, but last night was worse than usual. We noticed.
Luke shuddered, remembering the ear-rending shrieks that had come from the Black Mage's room in the Insta-cabin.
At least we got back to sleep, though. Yes, we can't all be so lucky. I'm used to it.
Vlad looked around.
Should be to the east. Let's pick it up.
It was only a few days since their defeat of Lich, though Drake and Mary had wanted to return to Melman City first. Luke and Vlad argued that it would be better simply to continue to Sardas first, since it would add another week to go to the capital and return. Their logic had won out in the end, and they had advanced to the Titan's tunnel and won through. Only 2 days later, they finally reached a cave at the base of yet another mountain that was noticeably covered with a wooden door. A welcome mat before it and a metal pipe rising out of the stone above further reinforced the obvious fact that somebody lived there. Without pausing, Luke strode up and rapped sharply on the door.
Hey, Sarda. You there? If it's the Imp Scouts, I'm all stocked up on Thin Mints already.
A gruff voice bellowed from the inside.
What if it's the Troll Scouts instead? Or maybe the Ogre Scouts?
Drake hollered back, then gave in.
How about the Light Warriors, then? Light Warriors? Come on in, then, but if I see 4 ogres wearing uniforms, I'm blasting you all the way to the Ryakan Desert.
Sarda yelled in response.
Doors unlocked. That seems a bit unsafe in this day and age.
Mary noted as they entered.
Especially with all the monsters around, and this close to the Fiend of Earth's location too.
Sarda's cavern dwelling was simple but comfortably furnished, with enough to accommodate a single occupant easily. After the large entry room, a hall led towards the back, with several doors in its sides before it turned at the end. As she spoke, an old man wearing blue robes with a long brown beard walked out of that bend in the hall.
Lich doesn't scare me. And the other monsters have learned to stay clear of this place. One does pick up a few tricks after being in the business this long.
Sarda the sage was polishing a dish as he walked over to them.
Sit down, sit down. I carved these chairs myself, they're hardly cushioned wonders, but they'll take the load off your feet.
Putting the dish down as they sat, he looked them over.
So? You're the Light Warriors. Lucan, Valish and Merton all spoke well of your potential. It seems you've been on the road to realizing that? Good.
All 4 Light Warriors recognized the names of one of the 3 sages who had instructed them in their youths as to their tasks, then departed to convene with Sarda and the others at Crescent Lake.
Sarda, the sage of Melmond. One of the 12 vessels of the prophecy that foretold our coming.
Vlad coolly regarded him.
Well met. As you may expect, we have come to you for instruction regarding our purpose. Indeed. So it was foretold.
Sarda made a face.
And it only took us 40 years to figure that part out. He who speaks from earth shall be first, and return to earth he shall to speak again when the light warriors come to him first. If that's not me we're in trouble, but as near as we can figure it is.
The old man rolled his eyes.
Not that I'd mind handing the job off to somebody else if I thought I could get away with it. Hey, I doubt you had it as bad as us.
Luke protested, and Sarda fixed him with a cold gaze.
Come on. Some drunken pirates, a few second-rate wizards and a crazed wannabe king? I could polish all those off in half an hour, tops. All at once. The Chaos Knight may have been a different story once, but you brought him down too. Whereas me and the other sages have been wrecking our brains trying to puzzle out all the meaning beyond these stupid words for the past 80 years and we still haven't managed it. That is a bad career. Still.
Luke raised an eyebrow.
It's that bad. See for yourself.
Pulling a long scroll out of a drawer, Sarda unrolled it onto the table they were seated around.
Check it out. We've even got it separated into different sections, for each of our individual statements. 80 years ago, the 12 of us spoke at length in a voice that shook the earth. People recorded those statements, and we discovered that all of us, though we had never met each other before in our lives, had spoken of the exact same subject and many of our words supported each other. That was the main thing that got the attention of all the royal families and convinced them we were on the up and up. That, and I suppose they figured they had nothing to lose by going along with a long shot on killing the fiends. It looks like gibberish to me.
Mary assessed, looking over the scroll.
And it's not even consistent. 1 minute you were talking about the wooden wings that sail the sky, then in the next sentence it's about the prisoner of purchase in a cage of glass. And this is the real prophecy. Yup. That's it.
Sarda groused, sinking further down in his chair.
There are 2 things that make it so bad. First, it's got no sense of order. It talks about your journey as a whole, not in progression, so there's no guarantee what happens when in the order of our talking. And second, you'll notice there are no names there, either of places or of people. It's all in obscure descriptions. Once we figured that out, we could try to start understanding the meaning. Right there, about halfway down in the Oracle of Elisham. That's the part that tells me to depart from the circle and head back here to meet with you when you come. It's there, all right. He who speaks from earth shall be first, and return to earth he shall to speak again when the light warriors come to him first. If you guys figure that means this, I ain't arguing.
Luke looked up.
So then, that leaves the question of what exactly you're going to tell us. We've been to the Earth Cave already, and killed Lich. But there are a few things that worry us. See, it was easy. Too easy. More so than that crazed wannabe king, I think you put it. And there was something else there, a plate set in the ground at the very back. Mary and Vlad here said it had the toughest magic they'd ever seen on it. All me and Drake could figure was that something about it felt bad. Evil. Any idea what's up with all of that? Much to my regret, I do. And I have to inform you that your tasks here are not complete.
Sarda closed his eyes.
Look there, near the beginning of the Oracle of Kalabak. There is darkness near the heart of earth, and deception as well. The ruby is the heart of lies, but not the heart of earth. Then in the Oracle of Murden, he who is the curse of earth is the prisoner of it also, locked by his own power. And in my own account, the fiend of earth is not the fiend of earth. Finally, in the Oracle of Macgarison, bend all your power, and craft a rod that holds power over earth, to open the cage of he who must be slain. See if you can make something of that when you put it together with what you've done here so far. The ruby. Is that the one we found after we killed?
Drake started, then froze, all the color draining from his face.
Wait. That means, if I'm reading this right, are you saying that wasn't Lich? Correct.
Sardan nodded bleakly.
For some reason, Lich is a prisoner of his own power. And thus, he had to use that vampire as a puppet. I knew it as soon as I saw him for the first time. He's identical to other vampires, who serve Tiamat in her palace. She must have given this one to Lich as a gift, since they're the most powerful form of the undead, whom Lich has an affinity for. But he was not the true fiend of Earth. That one, the real Lich, is still behind that plate you mentioned, unable to escape. If you wish to kill him, you will have to shatter that plate. So then, you have this rod that's mentioned there?
Mary wondered.
Yes. We labored mightily to construct it, using all of our art, once we realized the significance of that passage.
Sarda walked over to a bookcase and pulled one massive, 2-foot tome out. Grunting under its weight, he carried it to the table and dumped it there, then opened it to reveal a short staff of solid gold, hidden in a hollow of the pages.
Here it is. This is the rod I returned here to deliver to you. Opulent.
Vlad noted, attempting to lift it and failing, wincing, and removing his hand quickly.
Heavy, too. And it doesn't seem to like me. You had better do it, Luke. Much like silver is a metal that loves magic and adds might beyond the physical to weapons carved of it, even in those who are untutored in the arts themselves. Gold is the opposite, a metal that magic shrinks from. We created this staff with that in mind and further strengthened those qualities. It's not a weapon, but striking any stationary enchantment will hopefully shatter it. If we crafted it well enough, even that plate in the earth cave.
Sarda looked them in the eye, one by one.
But be prepared. When you do so, there will be no turning back. Shattering that plate will free Lich, the fiend of earth, and once you do, you dare not turn your backs on him. It will be time for you to truly slay your first fiend. All the world will be depending on your success. Are you ready? We have to be, don't we?
Luke shrugged, hefting the rod before placing it into his pack.
Nobody else can, or so we understand it. I'm not a thinker, but these guys are, and they seem to agree with me on this, so I guess that's just the way it goes. Will you be returning to Crescent Lake now? Indeed I will. I and all the other sages will pray for your success.
Sardan nodded, rolling up his copy of the prophecy.
If you succeed, then come next to Crescent Lake. I will inform the others to prepare for your arrival, and we shall further explain the prophecy and your next steps to you. We'll do our best.
Mary promised.
Thank you again. And good luck to you as well.
And thus did the 4 light warriors return once more to the earth cave, heart and soul of the first element they were to confront. Again they followed the same path as before, battling the elemental servants of Lich and the accursed green ogres, the wizards of marsh and the stone-gazing cockatrices. And finally, they did return to the room of the vampire, and beyond it the stone plate that held their enemy imprisoned.
There's the plate.
Luke removed the rod from his pack, then paused and handed it to Drake.
Here. You do it. This one's personal for you, after all.
Silently taking it, Drake approached the plate and gazed down at it for a moment before striking it sharply with the butt of the rod. For a moment there was no reaction, but then cracks appeared in the plate, glowing with a brilliant white light. And then it exploded violently, blasting apart in fragments that flew all the way to the back of the room. Below it, a carved stone ladder led down into a hole, deeper into the earth.
That's it, then. No turning back now.
Drake handed the rod back to the fighter.
For better or for worse, Lich is free. And we're the only ones standing in the way of the real thing descending upon Melmond. Let's go.
One by one, the light warriors climbed down the ladder and continued onward. More of the undead stood in their way, the worst of them being bandage-wrapped mummies that ignited en masse with a few words from Vlad or melted into dust with those of his sister. From that point on, they also had to be careful of attacks from behind, green ogres, the wizards of marsh, and once even a pack of hyenas from above ground would come charging up behind them, bolstering the undead inhabitants of the sealed floor. Such attacks would not have been an issue were it not for the fading light. The deeper they went, the more the brown light emanating from the cavern walls around them faded. When they eventually reached the 5th floor, there was no glow at all, the cavern was totally dark.
Now what?
Luke muttered once they were all down there.
I can't even see my own hand in front of my face down here. Here, let me.
Mary spoke a chant, and a glowing ball of light appeared above her head.
A few modifications to the lamp spell, and instead of restoring light to afflicted eyes, it releases it more gradually over a general area. Very nice.
Drake grinned at her, then sobered.
Hoops, incoming.
The white mage dodged away from the fist of a green, monstrous humanoid creature with long pink hair draping its body.
A troll? Since when are those native to Melmond? They're not.
Mary smashed its fist with her hammer, and the troll recoiled, bellowing.
One of the other fiends probably sent it as soon as the barrier went down. If Lich is asking for reinforcements, he's not looking forward to this. Good.
Luke finished the troll off.
We need every advantage we can get. Let's keep going.
They continued down the darkened halls, slaying several more trolls, until at the end of the path a pair of ornate steel doors stood in their way. Along with 2 humongous, jade-skinned giants who loomed over the light warriors.
The last guard, huh? Figures it's nasty.
Vlad raised his hands, and blue magic formed around him.
I hate to use a spell of this level before Lich, but it's better than the wounds it would take us to bring these ilk down otherwise.
The magic solidified, then burst outward in a spray of 2-foot icicles that nailed the 2 giants to the wall. Drake whistled.
Whew. Well, so much for that. That one should make even Lich sweat. Hardly. His magic will probably make mine look like child's play.
Vlad glared at the doors.
But in conjunction with the 3 of you. Well, we've come this far. Time to test ourselves and the prophecy for real.
Mary passed out healing potions, and they all drank deeply.
Everybody ready, then?
Luke asked once they had finished. The other 3 nodded silently, and the fighter grinned.
Right. Let's kill us a fiend.
Stepping forward, he kicked the doors open and advanced, the others formed around him. The room was filled with stalactites and stalagmites, pointed spires of stone rising from the floor and ceiling, but a narrow path threaded through them from the door to an altar of the same black basalt that the vampire's throne had been made of. On the altar was a sphere of rock the exact same size as the orbs, orange, with milky white lines running through it.
Sardonyx.
Vlad identified the stone.
It's considered a gem by some dwarves. I wonder if...
Drake drew out his orb.
Thought so.
The crystal sphere was glowing now, the same color as the sphere on the altar. Suddenly, with a startlingly loud noise, the sphere cracked open, and a black gas began emerging from it. It grew, expanded, becoming larger and larger until the shape towered over them, then changed, becoming a deep purple, robes, enclosing something that was vaguely humanoid. First one hand, then another slowly reached out, fleshless bones like white spiders that reached up and pulled back the hood of the robes, revealing a grinning skull, eye sockets glowing yellow.
Welcome, light warriors. I am the true fiend of earth. I am Lich.
The monstrosity greeted them as the darkness around him expanded, filling the cavern and washing over the four heroes like a tidal wave. Involuntarily, they all took a step back, shuddering.
This is nothing like the vampire.
Mary gasped.
He's the real thing, all right. So, all four of you have gathered here.
The Fiend of Earth looked them over.
Neither the Chaos Knight, nor Astos, nor even my puppet could kill even one of you. A shame. I'll have to do it all myself. Actually, Astos got one of us. Me.
Drake corrected, eyes narrowing.
I got better, of course. But that's still more than you've been able to do so far. Even when you went as low as to send those green ogres after my family when I was young. That didn't do jack. So much for the power of the terrible Fiend of Earth, eh? You have a big mouth, pup. You seem to be trying to anger me.
Lich replied, skeletal grin still fixed on his face.
But it won't work. Went as low. Such terms don't mean a thing to me. I am no mortal evil, deluding myself that I am in the right. I and my brethren are embodiments of chaos. Despair is our only joy, destruction our only purpose. We exist only to deny you everything that you do, anything that you love. And in that, judging by the hatred with which you look at me, I have succeeded quite admirably, elf pup. Drake, no.
Mary yelled, but in vain. The elf, eyes burning, charged at Lich with the dragon sword swinging. Even as the skeletal hands shot down to block the blade, though, he turned to look behind him.
Now, guys!
Drake yelled at Luke and Vlad.
Hit him hard!
He broke off, gasping in pain, as ice crept down the length of the blade to encroach upon his hands and arms. Releasing him with a sneer, Lich turned his attention to Luke, whose silver sword slammed into the Fiend of Earth's shoulder. Apparently unconcerned, Lich responded with a blow from one fist that sent the brawny fighter flying across the entire length of the cave. Before he could launch a follow-up blow, though, a flurry of lightning bolts burst out from Vlad's palms and pierced the Fiend of Earth like so many arrows.
That seems to have worked.
The Black Mage noted, then stared up at a crystal embedded in the ceiling, which had begun glowing before unleashing a pillar of electricity into the hapless Vlad. Reeling and smoking, he fell.
Brother!
Mary healed him as the other two rose, wincing from their injuries, and Lich laughed, slowly stepping towards them.
Was that the destined power of the Light Warriors? Okay, he's kind of got a point.
Luke muttered.
That sure didn't work. Got a plan B, Drake? Possibly.
Drake looked at the two mages, ignoring the advance of the Fiend of Earth.
Remember that one spell Astos used? Fast? Any chance either of you can use it on us? I picked it up in Melmond for this fight, actually.
Vlad smiled for just a moment before sobering.
I wanted to hold it in reserve for later in the fight, to surprise him. But it looks like that's not going to be an option. If we don't give him everything we have full force, he'll overwhelm us. Sister, can you distract him? Got it.
Mary stepped to the fore.
All right, Lich. Let's see if you can do that to me. The woman? The healer.
Lich's eye sockets glowed.
There's only one reason you would be taking the front line.
He fired a spell at the same time as Mary did. Hers was a blast of holy light, stronger than any she had summoned before, while his was a sphere of orange light that arced over her shot to strike her in the head. Both hit at the same time, but while Lich actually reeled from the blast, skidding back several steps, Mary did not move at all. Not even to lower her arms from the spell she had cast. She remained frozen, like a statue.
Is she petrified?
Drake yelled at the black mage.
Like those cockatrices? No, she's just paralyzed.
Vlad growled, finishing his own casting.
The hold spell. Hopefully she'll be able to break it, but until then we'll have to fight without her. Not good. And we'll have to shield her too. Great.
Luke grunted, then charged.
Guess we'll just have to be that good.
He and Drake charged, blades swinging, and when Lich tried to intercept them this time, they leaped and actually bounced off of the skeletal hands, slashing like whirlwinds and landing 4 strikes in 4 seconds to the enemy's shoulders and head before flying past him.
Ha! How's that work for you? Not bad. But not good enough.
Lich's head whirled around to grin at them, then belched a cloud of green gas that they both recognized as the sleep spell. Both warriors leaped back to avoid it, then glanced at each other.
Again?
Drake queried, and Luke nodded.
Oh yeah.
As soon as the cloud had faded, they both jumped forward again, the same way as before.
No, you idiots!
Vlad yelled from the other side of Lich.
He used it too. He used fast. What?
Luke gulped as he saw the fiend of Earth's glowing eyes focusing on him as the stronger threat.
No. Like I said, boys. Not good enough.
Skeletal hands shot out, fingers extended like blades, and slammed into Luke's body time and time again, smashing him backwards against the far wall to hang limply for a moment before falling, bleeding from a dozen places. Drake landed with the mages again, strikes on Lich ignored.
Oh man! Now what? We hold him off until Mary can heal him.
Vlad decided.
An intelligent plan, but I'm afraid I don't feel like playing along.
Lich stepped back towards Luke.
Once your leader dies, the rest of you will fall all the easier. We were talking to you, abomination.
The black mage growled, releasing the massive spray of icicles that had obliterated the 2 giant doormen.
Your turn, idiot, and try to actually hurt him. I've got an idea along that regard, actually.
Drake charged again as the icicles punched through Lich's cloak, forcing the gigantic skeleton to stop as he hunched forward in pain. As the elf reached him, he struck but not with his sword. Instead, it was the orb he held that he slammed into Lich, and as he did, the orange glow that had been sullenly filling it changed, becoming a blinding white. And Lich screamed.
Get away!
Whirling, he backhanded Drake furiously, then repeated with his other hand before the elf was flung beyond his grasp. Drake rolled along the ground, but when he rose, he was grinning.
How about that? It worked.
Where the orb had touched Lich, a hole was burned through both sides of the nebulous purple cloak, charred and smoking and refusing to close as other injuries had.
This is the orb of Earth. The most holy object of the element in existence. And it looks like it's got more purpose just to identify me. Seems you can't bear the touch of it. Isn't that a shame?
The orb's glow had dimmed again, but the wound in Lich spoke of the power it held. Lich's eyes dimmed, then glowed again, even stronger.
Enough play, then.
He raised his hands, and above Drake and Vlad, the roof of the cavern began to melt, glowing brighter and hotter. And then it fell upon them, molten lava. And they screamed, but though Drake's was pained, Vlad's howl was frenzied, insane, as he burned.
Ha ha ha! Do you like the touch of fire, Vlad? I should hope so. You'll be seeing it much more before long. Even if it's me that kills you, Kari's made me promise to drag your corpse to her so she can have it. So she can have you, Vlad. She has such interesting plans for you, little mage. Shut up.
I see magic from Vlad washed over them both, cooling the lava.
That won't happen. You'll never kill us. Not if you keep making amateur mistakes like that. Haven't you noticed anything? What do you?
Lich broke off as he realized that his lava had only hit 2 of them. Mary was gone. He turned, but not in time, as Luke ran up his back, smashing blows through him the entire way, finishing with his head as he leapt past.
Thanks for the heal, Mary.
The fighter grinned as he landed back with his comrades. Around Lich, the white mage ran from behind him, smiling as well.
No problem, oof.
She grunted as Lich's foot smashed into her, kicking her once, twice, 3 times in succession as she passed.
You got around me when I wasn't looking like that once, woman. But not twice.
Lich's skull righted itself from the unnatural angle Luke's final strike had bent it on.
So you're all back in the game now. It won't help you. You can't keep going forever. But I can. Anybody got any other ideas?
Luke puffed, breathing heavily. Mary and Vlad glanced at each other, then nodded.
It worked on the vampire.
Mary started, both of their hands glowing.
Let's see how you like burning, undead.
Vlad shouted, as fire magic and holy magic blasted outwards, mixing into one powerful stream that ran Lich straight through the chest, emerging from his back to scour the wall of the earth cave behind him, barely missing the altar.
Yes. Go.
Nodding, Luke and Drake dashed forward, swords swinging.
You don't learn.
Lich gloated, head snapping up as his hands flashed out, catching the swords and hurling the 2 warriors by them into the sides of the cave. A slight puff of smoke rose from where the silver sword had been held, but he showed no signs of feeling the pain.
Nothing you can do will avail you against me. Nothing. Bull.
Drake yelled as Mary healed him.
We saw that go through you. Perhaps. But seeing isn't always believing.
Lich grinned, pulling the front of his robe open, exposing his rib cage. Or what was left of it. A massive hole, 2 feet in diameter, had punched through the bones and charred those around it that had remained. In the center of the fiend's chest, however, blazing orange energy glowed.
It hurt. I'll admit it.
His fixed grin leered at them, eyes glowing stronger than ever.
My chest feels like it's been ripped apart. Shit. Even that didn't do it.
Luke wondered, rising, healed as well.
How do we win this?
He turned as Mary bent over, pale.
Hey, what's wrong? Nothing.
The white mage smiled, standing back up.
I'm okay. Hey, don't joke around.
Drake told her.
Spill it, Watso, no.
From Lich's maw, a massive fireball erupted, blasting them all. Luke attempted to stand in front, taking as much of the blast as possible, but it was impossible to shield them fully. And once it was gone, the fighter fell onto one knee, armor smoking.
Damn you!
Drake charged again, and Lich sneered.
How many times must you
The fiend of Earth's jaw dropped as green light washed over him from Vlad's hands.
Slow? Like you used on Astos? You dare use the same tactics on me that you did with that garbage? Scum is scum. High-powered scum is still scum.
Vlad snorted.
And that takes care of your fast for the moment. Something which I can take advantage of.
Drake parried the descending skeletal hands with his blade and thrust the earth orb into the Fiend of Earth again, causing Lich to howl in pain. This time, after slamming the orb through the robes, Drake reached upward, seeking bone and finding it. Lich's answering strike that smashed him away was too late. Creaking, the Fiend of Earth limped to one side as his right thigh bone dissolved. Drake stood again as Mary finished healing Luke.
What does that feel like, big guy? Pathetic mortal.
Lich glared at him.
Don't get confident, whelp. This doesn't increase your chances by one bit. Look at yourselves.
Drake did so, and winced. Despite Mary's repeated healings of them, they were all on the verge of exhaustion, leaning over and breathing heavily. The Fiend of Earth's relentless strikes had taken their toll on all four light warriors, and the white mage who had kept them alive seemed the most stricken of them all, skin an ashen gray as she struggled to keep her grip on her silver hammer.
Your attempts to keep yourselves upright despite my strength have limits, but mine do not.
The glow in the Fiend of Earth's eyes glittered sickly down at them.
The difference is obvious, as is the final result. Despite all your efforts, you will die. And nothing you do can change that. Not even this.
Drake raised the orb of earth.
You put up a good show. But you're not invincible. You're not as fast as you were when we started this, and that slap of yours wasn't as bad as the first one you hit me with. Every time we hit weakens you, even if they can't kill. And this does hurt you. Bad. You're not immortal. We can win this. We will win this.
Hearing his words, the other three light warriors smiled as well.
That's the spirit, buddy.
Luke brandished his sword.
We're not dead yet. Your enthusiasm remains undiminished.
Vlad straightened up.
Yet, it's not as annoying as usual, for some reason. We won't give up. No matter what you do.
Mary smiled fearlessly.
Nothing you can do will make us stop. Is that so?
Lich roared, hurling a sphere orange light straight at Drake.
Try to move, then. Try to fight back.
Drake froze, paralyzed by the hold spell, and Lich laughed.
What happened to your words of bravado, little elf? Where are they now? And where is your orb of earth? Go on, try to hit me with it again.
Drake's eyes twitched, but his body remained stiff.
As I thought. I'll put you out of your misery now, then. And without you holding the orb of earth, your friends have no chance left at all.
From the Fiend of Earth's hands, a spray of icicles flew out, 2 feet in length and sharp as spears. Though the range extended to all four light warriors, the greatest concentration was aimed at Drake, and he could only watch, frozen, as they flew towards him. And were intercepted by another, wearing robes of white.
No.
Vlad howled as he was struck too, sent flying by the skewers, one of them sweeping his ever-present hat off as he went down. Luke, too, was struck back, grunting as the ice knocked him flat. Only Drake was unharmed, staring frozen at the white mage who had stepped in front of him, in the path of the skewers.
You? Why?
The elf murmured as the hold spell shattered, catching Mary as she fell back limply.
I'm sorry,
she whispered.
I'm through. Gave it all I could, healed you all every time. But I'm out of magic. Only enough for one more spell. After that, I'd be useless. And I owe you for Astos. Now, we're even.
She raised her hands to the Fiend of Earth, coughing up blood.
Please, stop him. Don't give up. Don't let him win. Destroy him. Help Luke. Help my brother. I'm counting on you.
One last time, the most powerful holy magic any of them had ever seen flashed out, and this time, Lich reeled back like they had under his assault. The Fiend of Earth recoiled, hands covering his face, and with a sigh, the life faded from Mary's eyes. Slowly, Drake placed her down on the ground, then looked at his companions. Luke and Vlad were both standing back up, shaking off the wounds they had received.
Last chance, then. We're gonna have to finish it this time.
Luke muttered, covered in his own blood.
Any ideas? 1.
Drake replied, voice cold as ice.
I think I know a way to win. It's a gamble, but it's the only thing I can think of. Then we'll do it.
Vlad decided, face bowed into the collar of his robes as he looked down at the body of his sister.
Let's hear it. Keep him off me.
Drake looked at the crouching Fiend of Earth.
Just for a few seconds. And we've gotta do it now, before he recovers. Ready? As we'll ever be.
Luke drew up his sword, and fire formed around Vlad's hands.
Let's go. Right.
With them on either side of him, Drake rushed forward, faster than either as he bore down on Lich.
What?
The Fiend of Earth's eye sockets stared at the suicidal-seeming elf as he bore down, but when his hands descended, silver sword and fiery blast met them, forcing them back. Drake did not attack, however, he simply continued on, running through the hole made in the Fiend of Earth's robes by his earlier touch of the orb. Snarling, Lich struck both fighter and black mage with electricity, and they crumpled. Behind him, Drake had reached the back wall of the room, and as Lich turned, his steps carried him up it.
You know, I didn't think it was possible for me to hate you even more than I already did.
The elf informed his foe almost conversationally as he backflipped towards his skull.
I was wrong.
Landing on his enemy's shoulders, the elf struck with his sword, slashing again and again under Vlad's still-present fast spell. Lich ripped at him with skeletal hands, but Drake remained in place, striking again and again until he finally knocked the skull away, flying off of the Fiend of Earth's body.
Fool, did you think that would kill me?
Lich's ever-present grin leered as the skull floated up, and his hands continued to tear into the thief like knives. But still Drake remained in place, standing over the now empty neck socket, and raising his other hand. The one that held the Orb of Earth. No, Drake grinned weakly, despite the horrible wounds.
I thought this would.
And with a scream of hatred, he hurled the Orb of Earth down into the nebulous orange energy that filled the Fiend of Earth's ribs. Lich's skull froze, jaw hanging down, as the orange light was eclipsed by shining brown, coursing through him and evaporating the purple robes like smoke. His arms fell, limp and powerless, as the brown light became stronger, shining through his skeletal body like it was but a thin lampshade.
An undying will.
Lich gasped, stricken.
No. It was true.
The light in his eyes became pale, sickly, as his skull was pulled back to rejoin his body. At the last second, it picked up speed, knocking Drake off of his shoulders to rejoin the others.
You are real. The Light Warriors. Tiamat was right.
But as the brown light reached up to the skull, one last cloud of blackness formed in his hanging jaw.
Do not think this is over. 3 more fiends still remain. I was but the first. They still await you. And when I leave, I will take something with me.
The cloud shot out, separating into 4 black spheres that slammed into all of their heads, even the inert Mary.
Goodbye, Light Warriors. May my brethren cause to you all the pain I have, and 10 times as much again.
And then the bones themselves were filled with the surging brown light, and they became the light as well, last of all being the skull of Lich, charred black by the surging energy, but still grinning to the last. Once it was gone, the light began to collapse, condensing inward, until only a crystalline sphere remained. the orb of Earth, now glowing with that same brown light.
We did it.
Drake slowly stood, wincing.
We won, guys. Woda. Thunk it.
Luke groaned, remaining flat on the ground.
I'm still alive. Technically. Can't walk, though. Same here.
Vlad grunted, face down.
Now what? Any more ideas? You seem to be getting them right. For once. Let's try this, then.
Drake stumbled towards the orb of Earth and pulled it down out of the air, then advanced on the altar in the back.
This looks significant. The fiend of Earth is slain. Let the Earth be healed.
He placed the orb of Earth onto the altar, and the light changed, becoming blinding white. The light warriors winced, covering their eyes. Around them, they felt shaking. A massive rumbling that tore through the room around them.
Aw geez, a quake? You can't be serious. After everything we've been through, we're going to die like this. Not at all, young man.
A new voice disagreed.
Such would be most ungracious of me.
The light faded, and all three stared at the man standing before them. He was wearing green robes, of the same style Lich's had been, and the hair on his head was an earthy brown. Behind a pair of spectacles, his face looked young, but something in his eyes spoke of age beyond imagining.
Thank you, light warriors. Today, you have done your names proud. Who are you?
Drake wondered, and the strange man chuckled.
A name? Well, I suppose the closest would be Earth. Call me that, I guess. Earth.
Luke blinked.
Wait a second. Are you Lich? No,
Earth firmly denied.
I am everything Lich was not. The opposite of everything he stood for. I ceased to exist when he came into power, and when you destroyed him, I returned. It was shorter this time than usual. Because instead of waiting for his power to wane to the point where I could take control again, he was overwhelmed by a power greater than his. Rise, friends. Those wounds of yours aren't necessary now. Especially those of this brave woman.
Earth smiled, and the three light warriors felt their wounds close and their strength return.
What happened?
Mary's eyes opened, her dreadful injuries vanishing as well.
This isn't Melmond. What is oh my?
She stood as well, staring at Earth.
You're the element of Earth, aren't you? Exactly. Your faith in your friends was well founded. They succeeded.
Earth gazed over them all, and was proud.
No matter what Lich did to you, no matter how much power he unleashed in your paths, you continued on. As I knew you would. An undying will, to heal the heart of Earth. In that regard, Mr. Drake, you were strongest of all.
Drake stared.
What? No, I'm. He's not talking about physical strength.
Mary explained.
He's saying of us all, you were the one who refused to give up, most of all. And he's right. You didn't even stop to think of what you called your weakness this time. You kept on him, no matter what happened, and we all followed you. They're right.
Luke grinned, sheathing his sword.
You were good, bud. Don't sell yourself short. You won this one, more than any of us. Well, it was prophesized.
Vlad frowned.
Even so. You didn't screw up this time. My hat's off to you.
Drake blinked, noticing that the black mage's face was clearly visible for the first time. It would have been handsome, but for the massive black pouches under his eyes and the wasted, sunken cheeks.
Vlad?
The elf grinned.
Nice joke. What was it you said after Astos capped me? Oh yes. There may be some hope for you yet. Somebody's been telling stories, I see.
Vlad glanced at his sister.
Ah well, there are worse crimes.
Bending down, he retrieved his hat and placed it back on his head, obscuring his features once more.
Indeed.
Earth chuckled, then sobered.
You have done well today, my friends. But your tasks are not yet complete. The other 3 fiends still remain, and of them all, I must admit, Lich was clearly the weakest. You're joking.
Drake accused, grin vanishing.
Please tell me you're joking. I'm afraid not. You saw for yourself.
Earth shook his head.
That plate that I placed here, when I felt Kraken overtake water, and knew that me and fire were lost as well. I used the last of my power to create it, and it worked, sealing him away in here. You did that?
Mary blinked.
Well, that explains why it was such a powerful magic. Indeed. And confined here, Lich's power was weakened as well.
Earth finished.
The other fiends have been under no such restrictions. They will come at you in the full aura of their power. And I will be unable to halt that, newly recreated as I am. My own power is still dim. It will take me time to return to my full strength. And we don't have that time.
Luke realized.
The other fiends will know we're serious now. They'll be ready for us, and the longer we wait, the more time we give them to prepare. Exactly. But you've risen so far in so little time already, remember.
Earth polished his glasses, smiling again.
I think you can do it. And so do my brother and sisters, though they remain unrisen. We're counting on you. Then we should get to Crescent Lake, and fast.
The fighter decided.
More than ever, now we need to convene with the sages. And there's another fiend there too, isn't there? Carrie, fiend of fire.
Earth confirmed.
Now then. Shall I send you back to the surface, or was there anything else? I thought there was something, but I can't remember.
Drake frowned, thinking.
Something having to do with the orbs. But I can't remember. Guys. I'm drawing a blank too.
Luke admitted.
I remember there being something too, but I can't think of what it was. Sorry.
The mages spread their hands as well, and Drake sighed.
Oh well. Don't worry. Anytime you remember it, you can speak with me again using this.
Picking the orb of earth off of the altar, the element handed it to Drake. Now, it was glowing faintly white, all traces of the gloom that had filled it before gone.
Or on anything else. My power may be weak still, but my knowledge of the earth is yours anytime you wish it. Just hold the orb and think of me, and my voice will be there.
Drake nodded, pocketing the orb once more.
All right. We'll keep that in mind. Good. Any way I can help you, I'd be glad to.
Earth smiled.
Now then, let's send you on your way. I believe I've got a bit of cleanup to do in my house, and you've got your journey ahead of you.
The earthen ceiling above them opened up, revealing the sky far, far above, and with a thought the element sent them through it, through the ground and to the world above once more.
Good luck, friends. And thank you again.
Once they were all clear, the earth closed.
Well.
Luke looked around at the bright blue sky.
That seems to be it. Shall we head back?
The trip back to Melman City was much more pleasant for the Light Warriors than their previous wanderings throughout the country beforehand, in the wake of Lich's demise, the customary paranoia of the monsters following such events was present in such magnitude that a pack of ogres, upon sighting them, immediately ran shrieking guttural pleas for mercy and did not stop until they had vanished on the horizon. Even more apparent was the countryside itself. Already, the dead swamps were drying up, reverting back into the healthy fields that had characterized Melmond long ago. When they returned to the big city itself, they immediately saw that each and every one of the buildings was now completely level and upright. Before they could notice much more, however, loud cheers filled their ears, and the populace of the city surged out to welcome their saviors back.
It's okay. Really. Just doing our job, is all. No thanks necessary.
Luke waved them down good-naturedly, without much success.
We'd just like to find our friend. Where is Bicky, anyways? Probably down at the docks. It's a bit early for him to be hitting the pubs.
Drake winced.
Yeesh. Normally I'd like this sort of thing, but these folks are a bit too into it. Sorry, ma'am, I'm already taken. Same here.
Mary quickly informed an overeager young man, causing her brother to stare at the two of them before shaking his head and firmly moving another civilian to the side. Slowly, taking care not to harm anybody, the light warriors made their way down to the docks and soon located Bicky and Mr. Smite, who were sitting under a tree conversing with a slim, scholarly-looking Melmondian man of middle years.
Arg, there ye are. We was wonderin' when ye'd get back. Hoy, there are the ones.
Their companion adjusted his glasses fussily.
Bicky, please, it's not we was wait, what? These are.
He got to his feet and quickly bowed.
The Light Warriors. An honor to meet you. I am Dr. The world's foremost scholar in linguistics. Perhaps you've heard of me. Afraid not, but any friend of Bike's a friend of ours.
Drake replied cheerfully. Looked a bit disappointed.
You haven't heard of Dr. Alas. Ah well. I was just conversing with Bicky on a matter I broached with him some time ago. As you have undoubtedly gathered from the time you have spent with him, he and his fellows have a tendency to come across valuable treasures through various means unavailable to myself. There is one such rumored artifact that I have been yearning to acquire for quite some time, and thus have promised Bicky a grand payment if he chances to acquire it. Unfortunately, so far no such luck. Shame.
Mary agreed.
What is it, may I ask? Perhaps we'll run into it. A slab of stone, of merfolk origin. Through contact with the Leffinish civilization, they apparently managed to decipher their language and transcribed it onto said stone.
Dr. explained.
Unfortunately, since the rise of the Fiend of Water, all contact with the merfolk has been lost.
He blinked.
Wait a moment. You're going to do something about that beastly kraken as well, aren't you? You did succeed in slaying Lich, after all. That's the idea.
Luke confirmed.
We'll keep an eye out, and if we end up running into the merfolk, we'll ask them about it. I would appreciate it greatly.
Bowed again.
I won't be keeping you, then. I'm sure your attention is needed elsewhere. Until our hopeful reunion in the future.
Turning, he bustled away through the crowds.
A bit booky, but he's a nice chapter.
Bicky watched the doctor leave.
Helps us whenever we got something that needs readin'. So then, I'm guessin' you're ready to head off. If you don't mind.
Luke agreed, dodging a rushing fan.
This is a bit too hectic. We'd like to get on our way and out of here. Sounds like a plan.
Mr. Smite agreed.
This is reminding me a bit too much of a tavern brawl, so it might be best to leave before we forget ourselves and start bludgeoning these people. I doubt you would be very happy with us. Yeah, that would kind of mess with our saviors of the world image just a bit.
Drake laughed.
Right then, back on board we go.
They boarded the amphitrite and sailed out from the harbor, still trailing grateful citizens, some of which went so far as to swim out after the ship.
Devoted,
Vicky noted, watching them flounder around.
Hope we don't have to use the boarding pikes or nothin'. Right then, I'm guessin' we keep goin' to Crescent Lake now. You got it.
Luke slumped against the rail.
Hope we're all healed up by the time we get there. Lich really did a number on us. Yeah, well, we should have expected as much.
Drake shrugged.
Still, we won it in the end. And we've got a new buddy now. Looks to me like things came out pretty good. Think Sarda's gone already? I'm sure of it.
Vlad looked to the east.
He's probably already halfway to Crescent Lake, ready to warn the other sages of our approach. Wonder how he's getting there. Maybe he had the Titan throw him.
The elf joked.
Oh, you met the Titan too, did ya?
Vicky took his customary position at the wheel.
Yeah, he's an okay chap if you know how to deal with him. Not too bright, but get on his good side and he can be friendly enough, specially if you got a ruby necklace on hand that you thought looked ugly as meself in the morning already.
All four light warriors stared at him.
What? How? You know?
Vlad stammered, then threw his hands up in disgust.
Forget it. I'm going below to read something before I reopen my wounds.
He stalked off, muttering to himself.
Do you know everybody?
Luke shook his head in stunned amazement, and the grizzled old pirate winked.
Haven't met many Leffinish folks yet, I'll admit, though the longer I hang out with you folks the more I start to figure that just might wind up changing one of these days. Maybe.
Mary smiled slyly.
We met an interesting fellow ourselves a few days back. We'll probably introduce you to him eventually. I think you'll get along. He ain't still off in that direction.
Vicky glanced back at Melmond, then shrugged.
Well, sure then. I'm always up for meetin' more folks.
Drake smiled as well, glancing at the faintly glowing orb of earth in his pack.
I'm sure you'll find it fun. This guy's out of this world, believe me.
End of chapter.